the Small Cap Power Expert Interview.
I'm here with Trent Mell, president of PearTree Securities. Trent, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
For our viewers who might not be familiar with PearTree, can you give us a brief introduction to the company as well as your own career?
Okay, my own career, I was originally a lawyer, but I spent the last 10, 15 years in the mining industry, most recently running a junior company by the name of Falco Resources. Started out at Barrick Gold, and I've worked with various size companies in between. PearTree, I joined them less than a year ago. They provide capital to natural resource companies across Canada. 90% of that, 95% of that has been in the mining space. And what we do is it's a variation on the flow-through share regime that's been in place in Canada for 40 years now.
Let's talk about flow-through shares versus flow-through share donation financing. How can we compare and contrast that, and what's sort of the benefit and the model for both?
So about 40 years ago, the government brought in the flow-through share regime, and the idea there was to get retail investors investing in higher risk opportunities. So the issuer could issue shares, and the expenses from a drill program, for instance, could be put onto your tax return as an offset for the risk you're taking in an early stage story. So you get a deduction from your income and the upside on the stock should they be successful. Our innovation is to provide access to these stories to high net worth Canadians that are active in giving. So a lot of charities across Canada benefit from our structure. So there are two parties. So you've got a resource investor and you've got a philanthropist. The philanthropist will buy the shares from the mining company. They'll donate them to a charity, and then the charity then sells it off to the resource investor. And what that means is you've got a long-term buyer, so the stock doesn't come back to market. And what it means for the issuer is typically the much higher premiums on issue. So you're issuing above market, you're selling at a discount, and Canadian charities typically result in beneficiaries as well in the form of larger gifts.
So what's interesting is that PearTree has actually raised almost $600 million since 2007. Quite a bit of that has been over the past couple of years in a bear market. Yeah. What do you think that says about sort of this alternative capital when the sector has been very beaten down?
Yeah, I think it says two things. On the one hand, because there are two parts to the equation, on the philanthropy side, our client base includes lawyers, accountants, business executives, but it also includes a number of very generous sort of family offices across the country. They look to us to help structure basically more effective, more efficient giving, and that results in bigger gifts and a repeat client base. So from the philanthropy side, that's been a growing area for us. In fact, we have more donors than we have deals to fill. On the other side of the equation, we've done some work with the Northern Miner of late, and there is a recognition that traditional forms of debt and equity are not there. And so in addition to royalties and streaming agreements, which you would do in more mature companies, our product is providing access to a capital source that is replacing, frankly, what you might be raising in a bull market.
So we're entering now our fifth year of a resources bear market. Do you think that there's an end in sight?
I do. I've done a lot of the shows around the world, investor shows, and I meet with a lot of issuers, and I can say as a miner, we're eternally optimistic. But equally important, or maybe more important, I've met with a lot of the buy side, a lot of the institutional fund managers and retail investors. And if we want to refer to the institutional resource funds as kind of the smart money, the ones that are closest to it, there is an acknowledgement or recognition that we're bouncing along the bottom. So you bounce along the bottom, at some point you're going to go up and maybe stay up. Maybe another several quarters of pain, but it feels like we're getting to the end of this difficult cycle.
Because we have been saying that for years now, but you're saying that there are signs there, concrete signs there.
I think there are signs, and I'd also point to my view. The resource funds, a lot of them are underwater. Their investments, they're down 20, 30, 40%, like my own portfolio. And as a result, the fund sizes have shrunk. One, because of the returns, but also there have been redemptions. So to me, if you want to get a sign as to whether this cycle is turning in favor of the commodities, I think you've got to look to the generalist funds. And you're starting to see that. The California Pension Fund has started to look at a resource strategy. I think you're going to start to see a rotation out of whether it be biotech or tech or other cycles into mining because it's so beaten up. And I think as the generalist funds start to come in and deploy new capital, that will give encouragement to the sector for retail investors and even their traditional resource investors to maybe double down and put more money in. And I think we're at the early stages of that.
Well, I mean, PearTree obviously sees value in the resources sector. You deal almost exclusively with mining and gas companies.
Right.
where do you see the value in that, especially now?
Well, yeah, so our focus has been traditionally in mining. More recently, we've grown into Calgary. Oil and gas sector is living what we've been living, which is a dearth of financing opportunities. So we're able to fill that void. Renewable energy is another area that we're looking to grow into as well. The opportunity in mining, you got to recognize the cycles are long. It's not like investing in a Procter & Gamble or even in maybe a GE to some extent, where you can put your money away and year after year you're getting dividends and you're probably getting some form of appreciation in your stock price, consumer packaged goods. So you got to take a view, and you got to have a long enough horizon.
What about any companies or any particular commodities that you like at this time?
Yeah, I guess I named the two that I like, which is gold and zinc. And given we're Canadian-centric, there's not a lot of ways to play zinc in Canada. Trevally has an operation they're ramping up in New Brunswick, and they may turn the corner because they're actually in commissioning, and you might see some upside with them. In the gold space, the company that I ran, Falco Resources, and I am a shareholder, I see a lot of upside there. It's a mine that'll get built in the next cycle, and it's in the hands of Osisko now, so they've got the deep pockets. And then a lot of the stuff in the north, and again, it's going to take a better market because these are large projects with infrastructure needs. But the Kaminak, which has been a client, Sabina, who has not been a client, would be the kinds of projects that could be interesting. And when you look at that, you got to look at the cycle, the commodity, you got to look at the asset base, and of course the management team. Don't ever underestimate the management team. So you want to look for teams who have done it before, and in the companies that I've named, they've all got teams that have done it before.
Where can our viewers find out more information about PearTree Securities and flow-through share donation financing?
So we've got a couple of websites. There's PearTree Financial Services, which speaks to the donation side of our business, but on the mining and the issuer side, if you will, and some of the stuff we do, probably the most informative site would be the dealer side. So it's PearTreeSecurities.com would be our website, and we've got a couple of publications there that explain what we do and provide contact information.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
For more expert interviews, companies to watch, and analyst insights, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. For Small Cap Power, I'm Angela Harmantis.
The Small Cap Power Expert Interview.